Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening live to an edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here in Atlanta. JJ on the other side of the ATL. Mark, our producer in Los Angeles, along with our other producer, Wayne, in Memphis, Tennessee. Guys, appreciate you each participating in the show tonight. You can reach all of us at ATL Prime Sports. You can reach myself at Corder Todd, JJ at JJ Get You One, Mark at Mancini Sports, and Wayne at RWY Jr. We have two guests tonight. David Walker of the Rebel Walk will join us here momentarily to talk Ole Miss, Alabama, and Arkansas, Georgia. And then my broadcast partner, Duane Walker, will join us in about 10 minutes or so to discuss our game, Clark Atlanta versus Tuskegee, at 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern on ESPN+. We'll preview that SIAC HBCU football game momentarily. Want to say, first of all, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. They won their fourth straight NL East crown with a 5-3 win over the Philadelphia Phillies. Atlanta will play Milwaukee in the first round of the playoffs. Will Smith looked as good as we've seen him all year. We'll discuss the Braves in detail next week on ATL Prime Sports. In the meantime, let's introduce David Walker, bring him on, of the Rebel Walk, your source for Ole Miss sports. You can get a hold of David on Twitter at David Walker QB, and you can also get a hold of him at the Rebel Walk on Twitter. David, welcome to the show as always, my friend.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. Always
all right.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, it is. Let's get right to it. We got about 8 minutes. I'm going to go into the Ole Miss Alabama game first. What do you see how this game folds out? What are your keys?
Well, I'll tell you what, since Saban's arrival, there's only been one SEC team that was a double-digit underdog that's ever won at Bryant-Denny, and that was Johnny Football's 2012 A&M team. And they came in at 13.5-point underdogs and won the game 29-24. The other thing I look at is that Ole Miss, since 1970, is 3-0 anytime they've been ranked playing Alabama. They won in 1970, they won in 2014, and they also won in 2015 as ranked teams. The only game they've ever lost to Alabama when they were ranked was back in 1963 when they played the 1964 Sugar Bowl. They hadn't played, Ole Miss and Alabama hadn't played in years, so the Sugar Bowl invited them to come play at the Sugar Bowl in Tulane Stadium. And Ole Miss was ranked 7th, Alabama was ranked 8th, and Alabama won that game 12-7. Since 1964, Ole Miss is 3-0 against Alabama anytime they've been ranked in the top 20 or top 25. So they're going into Tuscaloosa Saturday as the number 12 team in the country. So if that tradition holds true, we could be looking at an upset. And it's most recently in 2015, of course, just 6 years ago, when they won their last one there as the number 15 team in the country. So it won't be new ground for them. It'll be new ground for the kids who are playing now. But they've got a pretty good history in that regard.
You're listening to David Walker, at David Walker QB on Twitter of the Rebel Walk, quarterback guru. David, welcome back. Good to hear from you again. Let's stick with that Ole Miss Crimson Tide showdown. It's also a showdown of two of the top Heisman candidates in Bryce Young versus Matt Carroll. Tell us about how rare of an instance that is and what each quarterback must do to beat the other quarterback.
Well, that's a really good point. Matt Corral was a little bit overlooked, I think, by national media coming into the season. A lot of people had him ranked as low as 5th or 6th among the returning quarterbacks when he was the number 1 returning quarterback in terms of QBR, which is one of my main metrics that I look at. Bryce Young, of course, playing for Alabama, has done an outstanding job and was the Heisman front runner until Ole Miss won their game against Tulane so handily on national TV, and I think that's what put Matt Corral over the top by a small margin with the odds makers. So going into this game, Matt Corral is the favorite to win the Heisman, and Bryce Young is just right there behind him. And I've been trying to find out when, if ever, the top two Heisman candidates have ever met on the football field during the regular season, and I haven't been able to find a single instance. So we may be making more history with this, set of circumstances.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And, David, I'll make a comment and bring it further. Would you say, because I think it is, I think these are two of the best quarterbacks, if not the two best quarterbacks in the country. What do you say?
Well, Matt Corral last year, QBR, and he finished third in the country against an all-SEC schedule. And, the two guys in front of him were Mac Jones of Alabama and Justin Fields of Ohio State. Both of those guys went in the first round. And so he's having the same type year this year. He's got the same QBR. He's still ranked third or fourth or so. Ole Miss has the number one team in terms of total offense per game this year. They've got the number one scoring offense in the nation at this point. They're number one in scoring in the second quarter, which we want to keep an eye on in the nation. So there's a lot of good things that Matt Corral is unlike last year where he had some issues with the interceptions. He has yet to turn the ball over. Just doing a great job in that regard. I tell you what, I've been doing my research, and I look back, and the only game I can find that Alabama had a total of 79.5 or 80 was back in 2018 when they were in the semifinals against Oklahoma, and it was Tua going against Kyler Murray, and Alabama was a 14.5-point favorite, as they are in this game, and the over and under was 80.5. Right now, the over and under in this game is 79.5, and I think they'll probably get every bit of that. But that's as close as we can go. Alabama ended up winning that game 45-34 to go to the national championship against Clemson. So they didn't quite make it, but they did score 79 total in that game. And so this is the second highest total in Alabama's history, second only to that Oklahoma game in 2018. So
Hey, David, I was going to say, David, we got about 4 minutes max. Can you give me the keys? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you give me the keys to the Ole Miss Alabama game, and then real quickly give the keys to the Arkansas-Georgia game?
Yeah, I tell you what, I think it's going to come down to turnovers and defense, just like most football games do. These two teams don't turn the ball over. Ole Miss has had 2 turnovers. Alabama's had 1. Alabama doesn't get beat on their home field very often. They've only been beaten on their home field 5 times since 2008. And, the defense, I think, is a little bit prone to being picked apart. And I think Ole Miss has the offense, the scheme. They've got the talent. They've got the speed, the players. But they're going to score a lot of points against this Alabama defense. And the odds makers may not have bought into Ole Miss quite as much as everybody else has. But I think that Ole Miss is going to give them a real run for the money. Ole Miss is favored in every other game that they play this year, as is Alabama. So this, in effect, is the SEC West championship football game coming up Saturday in Tuscaloosa. Arkansas, great defense. They got a great front three. My gosh, they drove Texas A&M's offensive line off the football. And if they can go to Georgia and do the same thing, I think we're looking at two great defenses. And it's going to be, I'm seeing 18.5, 19-point spread by Georgia. I can't see them covering that against Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to control the ball and play some great defense. We're going to have two outstanding football games on Saturday.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, it is going to come down to the defenses. Georgia only allows 5.8 points per game, and Arkansas is 12th in the country at 14.5. You and I are a little older than JJ. Historically, you remember the 1969 matchup, the first one between Arkansas and Georgia. I'll have to end with it because I'm out of time. That game ended up, that was the first time those teams ever played, and Arkansas won the game 16-2. There were 21 punts in the game. There were 11 turnovers. 8 of them were on Georgia. I'm not saying it's going to be anything like that, but defense is going to be the theme of that game. And I'll tell you what, whoever holds on to the football and is able to run it is probably going to be able to win it. And good luck, Arkansas, trying to run to that front four of Georgia. David, thanks so much for coming on. We're out of time. I have to bring my next guest on. And, maybe we'll bring you on next week. To talk about the Ole Miss Alabama game. Okay?
That sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Thank you so much for coming on. All right, that's David Walker of the Rebel Walk. On the other line, we have our other guest, Duane Walker, who myself and him are going to call the Clark Atlanta versus Tuskegee game at 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern on ESPN+. You can get a hold of my broadcast partner at D Nice Radio. And hey, partner, thanks for joining me this evening.
Hey, man, feels great being on Atlanta Prime Sports, but I got to admit, partner, I thought you were going to Matt Damon me. I didn't know I was going to make the show.
What's that, partner?
I thought you were going to Matt Damon me, and I wasn't going to be able to make the show. You're going to push me out.
No, I would never do that to you. All right, let's get to this game. You and I have had several conversations over the phone this week, and regarding to this game.
Yes.
When I look at Clark Atlanta on offense, they've only been able to rush the ball 2 yards. They only averaged 2 yards a carry rushing the ball last week, and Tuskegee that's their bread and butter is to run the football. Clark Atlanta, to me, is going to have to put on one heck of a performance to be able to run the ball against Tuskegee and also be able to hold them from running. To me, it seems like it comes down to the ground game.
No question about it. Both teams come in with a record of 1-3. They are struggling, but it'll be a big for these clubs, and fortunately for one of the teams will pass the test. But as you just mentioned, running the football has been an adventure for CAU and Coach Tim Bowens and his Panthers, not getting a lot of production from the position, and that, in essence, has been the Achilles heel of the offense thus far. But when you look at this roster, you notice that 51 of the 75 players are actually either freshmen or sophomores, so they're a very young team. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are, in fact, freshmen. So it's a real tough hole to go. And then to make problems, to exacerbate the issue, they still have to find some continuity at the quarterback position. They've utilized 3 quarterbacks so far already this season in Elijah Odom, Sharif Brown from Woodland High School, as well as John Kerr. So they're looking for a little stability at the quarterback position.
Well, speaking of the quarterback position, each team, Clark Atlanta, Sharif Brown, and Elijah Odom, that's a game-time decision. And then Bryson Williams and Lewis Williams for Tuskegee, that is also a game-time decision. So despite the fact that, Lewis Williams was very successful last week throwing the football, but Willie Slater, the veteran coach, in the SIAC. They're keeping it close to the vest, and I think they're going to play both quarterbacks on Saturday, Duane. I think they're going to run them both, and I think they're going to throw them.
No question about it. Bryson Williams, but he definitely has the better numbers coming into this contest. But the difference between the CAU offense and the Tuskegee offense is that even if the quarterbacks for Tuskegee have issues moving the football, they've got a release valve in junior Avante Patterson out of Stevenson High School. This guy's been tremendous over the past couple of weeks. He rushed for over 135 yards in a victory over Edwin Waters a couple weeks ago, and then coming off a fine 3-touchdown performance against Alabama A&M in a tough 10-point loss this past Saturday. So he's been a pleasant surprise in taking over for Tarian Taylor, who unfortunately was injured in the second game of the season.
Switching over to the other side of the football, we'll start with Clark Atlanta first. Rodney Lewis is a heck of a player. He works hard and he plays hard. And if Clark Atlanta is going to be successful in stopping that Tuskegee running game, Rodney Lewis is going to be a big part of it.
No question about it. No question about it. He's the emotional leader of that defense and actually of the whole team. He's the type of guy that will hold his teammates accountable. So they certainly expect big things out of him from that linebacking position. And again, on that defensive side of the football, again, the CAU Panthers are just awfully young. And then on the counter, as far as Tuskegee is concerned, if you take a look at their front four, for example, these guys are all transfers from D1 schools. Devere Hamilton is out of Utah. You've got Matthew Kenny out of Tennessee Tech. And then James Williams, a big 6'6" He's out of Ole Miss, as well as Kevin Scott out of Texas A&M Kingsville. So these guys on defense for Tuskegee, they come from D1 programs who have transferred into Tuskegee to sort of bolster that defense, and not to mention a pair of linebackers, a brother combination out of all places, Montreal, Canada, the Aquilon brothers, Wesley and Woodley. I wonder if those guys play hockey too. But my point being, this CAU offense is going to have some difficulty, I would suspect, going against this much older Tuskegee defensive front.
Well, now that you highlighted the Tuskegee defense there, a player I'm looking forward to watching on the offensive side besides Avante Patterson running the football is the pleasant surprise Jamal Pritchett. He had 6 catches for 104 yards last week and a touchdown versus Alabama A&M. They're going to throw the ball to him and definitely test that Clark Atlanta secondary.
No question about it. Jamal Pritchett has been a very pleasant surprise for Coach Willie Slater. He describes him as kind of a small guy, but when he gets on the field, he's very elusive and has very good hands. So I know Coach Slater is thrilled with him. Also, you talk about Jamal Pritchett being the top newcomer on offense. How about on defense, where Jaquan Hicks, this big defensive lineman, has sort of earned his way. Just a freshman, but he's already got an interception, one of the 3 on the Tuskegee defense. But not only that, don't tell him any money I said it, but Jaquan Hicks may have earned himself a scholarship. He's actually a walk-on player at Tuskegee.
That is such an incredible story. We were talking to Coach Slater yesterday when he said the walk-on. That caught our attention immediately, and he is going to be wreaking havoc in the Clark Atlanta backfield on Saturday, no doubt. Duane, thanks so much for calling in. We're out of time. Tuskegee is 3 wins away from 700 on the field. Wins as a program on the field. They already have 700, but I guess there were some forfeits back then or some disqualifications of games. But I was told by the SIAD who called me today that they're 3 wins away from 700 on the football field, as a program, and you get 700 wins as a football program, no matter what level you're at. That is quite historic. And I'm really looking forward to doing the game with you. You'll have the call. You'll be doing the play-by-play, and I'll have color, and I cannot wait to do this Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to it. 1 Eastern, 1 Central on ESPN plus 2 Eastern. Catch the call. Clark, Atlanta versus Tuskegee. And Duane, thanks so much for calling in. We can get a hold of you at D Nice Radio, and I can't wait to see you Saturday.
All right, TC, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me on Atlanta Prime Sports, man. Certainly enjoyed it.
I did too. We'll have to have you back on again. Thank you so much for calling in. That was Duane Walker. You can catch a hold of him at D Nice Radio. You'll have the call with myself on Saturday. Clark, Atlanta for Tuskegee. And JJ, I want to bring you back in, my friend. Thanks for your patience during the interview. We've got 9 minutes to talk about this. We'll go first to the Georgia-Arkansas game and talk about the keys. This is a matchup, I think, of want to, as they say here in the South. And it's all going to start with who can run the ball and who can protect the ball and who can finally break through on each team's defensive line.
Yeah, you're right about that. Both these teams come in ranking in the top of the country defensively. Georgia, let's just pull up the stats here, TC. This is what the Hogs are going to have to deal with all day. The Dogs' D's for real. First in scoring, first in passing efficiency, first in yards per play, fifth in yards per rush, sixth in interceptions, 11th in sacks. So that's what you're looking. But on the other side of that, Arkansas is very similar. They're also in the top half of the country in yards per rush, yards per play. So it should be a defensive battle. I think the Las Vegas experts have it right. It's right around the 49 or 48 is what we did in our pick six, 48 and a hook on Monday's spread. So it's kind of stayed right around there. So it should be a defensive battle, and you're right. It starts with both offense and defense. Both sides of the ball have good offensive and defensive lines, and the defensive front sevens on both sides look pretty stout.
Well, I mentioned early in the broadcast, Georgia only gives up 5.8 points a game, and Arkansas only 14.5. That spread is awful big to me. We'll see, but I'll tell you what, David Pollock, as you know, was a fantastic player at Georgia, said the Hogs play like wild banshees. And, to me, they're going to have to play like that against Georgia. They're going to have to whoop that good offensive line and stop that vaunted Georgia game and make them have first down. To me is critical in this game. Arkansas if they win first down and make life miserable for Georgia's offense and put JT in second and third long, it could be a really long night for Georgia. But if you flip the script, I'll say it again, first down is going to be the key for Arkansas. If they can't get a push and get 3-4 yards of carry on first down, they're going to pin their heels and they're going to come after the quarterback, and that's going to make a long night for Arkansas's offense. So first down to me is huge in this game.
I think you're correct about that. I think another key in this game, if we're going strictly by keys, is honestly you got to look at the health of JT Daniels and the quarterback KJ Jefferson. Both quarterbacks coming into this game a little banged up. Jefferson, I believe it's a knee injury, banged up towards the end of the A&M game last week. And as we know, JT Daniels has dealt with an oblique injury, and now it looks like a lat injury in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, for obvious reasons, he was pulled out of the Vanderbilt game. But also, we now know that was due to a little health concern. So that's going to be another key to the game, is which offensive line is going to be able to keep their quarterback upright, give them the ability to make that play, because we all know about Burks on the outside, as well as UGA's top threat, tight end Brock Bowers, and JT Daniels gets another weapon back. Darnell Washington, as I like to call him, Agent Zero TC, the 6'7" matchup machine, is back. And that could be a key in the game as well. So the health of the quarterbacks and which team keeps them upright. And you mentioned it, neither one of these teams has turned the ball over very much. This is going to be a low-scoring defensive battle. I still think Georgia will pull away. I picked them in the pick six. I think they'll pull away with the defensive score, and they'll pull away late, but it'll be a competitive ball game.
All right, let's flip the script and go over to Alabama and Ole Miss. David talked about it earlier, the historical matchup when Ole Miss is ranked. They've never lost to Alabama. That stunned me. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't.
But you know what?
Either.
Here's one. I'll flip the script on David. And Saban's 23-0 against his assistants.
Yep.
You know, when I look at this game, to me, Bama's O-line, they must protect the pocket. They're averaging 46.5 a game. And in 3 games, Ole Miss has 9 sacks, 4 from linebacker Sam Williams. And when I look at Bama's running game, you know, they're 80th in the nation in rushing, which shocked me, at a 151 a game. And then Ole Miss's D is 61st in the nation in rushing yards allowed. So something's going to give in there. And I still think first down is just as critical in this game as it is talking about the Georgia-Arkansas game.
Yeah, correct. This game's going to be won and lost at the line of scrimmage. To me, the key of this game, and I would honestly ditto exactly what you said, so I'm not going to repeat that. I'll go into a different key of this ball game. It's going to be can the Rebs defense hold it down? We all know their offense can get, well, right now it's averaging, 635 yards a game is what they're averaging. Let's see what they can do that against Alabama's D. Now, let's see if the Rebs D, which statistically this year has played extremely well, they've from last year's defensive performance, they've cut down like 2 yards per play. I was reading in a Ole Miss article. I can't remember where. I should have cited the source, but they've done extremely well on the defensive side of the ball thus far. Can they score enough points? Because I do think the experts are right. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout. Can the Rebs get that one turnover or those 1 or 2 defensive stops as they have in 14 and 15 when they were ranked? They were able to turn Alabama over in those games. Can they do the same thing Saturday in Tuscaloosa? That'll be the key to the victory, if they can pull it off.
Bryce Young protecting the football, no doubt. He's a much younger quarterback than Heisman candidate Matt Corral. Bryce Young's a Heisman candidate himself. So, I mean, this is just you're right. This could be this most likely will be a high-scoring game unless the D can turn each other over. I mean, you just never know going into these games how they're going to turn out. Nobody does. We can speculate to death on it, but, this seems to be the opposite of Georgia and Arkansas, where you're going to get a lot of points on the board. And, you know, Nick Saban, we only got about 2 minutes left in the show. Nick Saban said, why do we even huddle anymore? Why do we give the defense a chance to change personnel and get set? I can tell you right now, Ole Miss and Alabama will be a lot alike in that scenario. They're not going to give the defense a chance to get set. They're just not. JJ, if you don't mind, we got about 2 minutes left. I mentioned the Braves. They'll play Milwaukee. Let's go to Atlanta's other sports team real quick, the Atlanta Falcons. They face a nice front four in Washington on Sunday. You know, that game's an even. Boy, the Falcons are going to find some way to run the football. I don't know what that is. We got a minute left. That's my key to the Falcons winning this game, is being able to run the ball long enough for Matt Ryan to somehow throw it.
Right, agreeing with you, and I'll go further into that. Not only getting that push on the offensive line to get the run game going, giving Matt Ryan time to actually read the defense, step into his throws, and throw receivers open is key for Matt Ryan. He hasn't been able to do that. The pocket collapses, and he has to throw it right into defenders' faces as he's getting sacked. That can't happen. Keep him upright. Mayfield's got to play better. You got to get the offensive line on the same page, and this team can go places.
Well, you know, it was gloom and doom when they were 0-2. Now all of a sudden it's not so much gloom and doom at 1-2. Maybe they can be out. They play Sunday at 1 p.m. on Fox. Let's see if they can get to the 500 mark. That's the end of the show. You know what, guys? I really enjoyed it. Thank our two guests, Duane Walker and David Walker. Thank you guys so much for coming on, previewing all our football games. Thank you, Mark Mancini, for holding the phones in Los Angeles. Thank you, Wayne, for producing from Memphis. Thank you, JJ, for joining me. And I want to thank everybody for listening as always. We'll talk to you next week here on ATL Prime Sports. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Get you one.